Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. Tonight, I'll have a special guest, Japhy Ryder, the host and voice of Pirate Radio Podcast. So sit back. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm going to do a little interview and just a little, you know how we do it over here. We just talk about whatever topics come up. So, welcome Free Spirit Press, Rob. I'll let Japhy formally better introduce himself. He's got the better voice for this anyway, trust me.
Well, you want me to do that now, do you?
Yep.
Well, I think a few of your listeners will have heard me before, I guess, if they've ever dropped by to check out the weekly live stream we do. I guess now it's twice a week with the World Pirate Radio News segment as well, that little feature that we've had running now for the past, I think it's almost 20 weeks, not quite. And you, of course, have been helping out with that over the past month or so now, pretty much. So, but yeah, I am based here out of South Korea and have been into the podcasting game or field or industry, however you want to phrase it, for the past couple of years. Not really so much it being something that I had long fantasized about or desired to do, so much as it was I found myself almost as if drawn into the mix via the forces of destiny, as it were. That's what it really seemed. So, I mean, and with the Pirate Radio Project, that's really quite something too. The origins and the way that it's evolved over the past couple of years and continues to take shape, of course. Now it's evolved to include WPRPN. The Pirate Radio Podcast really is just a flagship to the wider network, which is based on cooperative and voluntaristic, I think that's the right English word, principles, the principle of voluntarism. So you can put as much or as little into things as you want. And that's exactly what you get out of it too, then in the end, of course, too. How much, which is pretty good if you think about it in a strictly karmic sense, I suppose. It's a just way of doing things, I suppose, or having things set up. Just getting a pop-up kind of notification here as we stream this out here with you, Drew, on the fly. Mr. Anderson over on Skype, part of the Robin Hood group, asking if there's not any show tonight. So tried to make it as clear as possible to the widest number of people that I was able to that we'd be running things through your channel this go around. We'd be taking a break. Actually, the way things happened was that Esoteric America had been booked. They unfortunately have not shown up for the past, well, they haven't been on minds.com the past couple of months. We had them booked a while ago and it sounded really good. And, you know, there's a whole number of messages that we'd exchanged between back and forth amongst one another. But unfortunately, you know, just the way things go, they might be in the hospital as far as that, as far as we know. We have no idea, but the bottom line is they haven't been active on Minds at all, unfortunately. So we just decided to kind of take the week off and improvise a little bit. So yeah, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for setting this up and making it all happen.
Well, it's a pleasure. I've been wanting to get more guests on this channel anyway. It was one of my goals with this, so not everybody has to sit here and listen to my voice every podcast.
Well, yeah, it's not just the son of liberty,
No,
right?
it's supposed to be sons and daughters of liberty,
There you
everyone.
go. Sure. Yeah. Hey, yeah, we're happy to uh, do our part in kind of directing people your way. That's not a problem at all, because really that's the whole point of what WPRPN is all about, the World Pirate Radio Podcast Network. We're out to better promote grassroots artistry and, the podcasting community, particular, of course, so that people who aren't necessarily out there in, um, well, it's like the mainstream alternative, let's say, not just alternative, mainstream alternative. That people that you find their faces and names and voices plastered all over the place. Instead, now what we're hoping to do is get these platforms up and out there and available for people so that they can have their chance to have their views and take on whatever number of issues maybe at stake or on the table, just basically have their voices heard. So you follow what I'm getting at
Right,
there,
and that's what
hopefully.
I think. I think what people don't realize a lot. I mean, each of these channels and podcasts and various platforms start interacting with each other. You start reaching different audiences. It's just not the audience that you normally have every podcast,
That'd be
and
pretty boring,
people
I would
miss out on that.
imagine. Yeah, no, it's great to have a core crew, and which we do, and they're the support base, of course. So, but it's always good to find new people as well too that are interested in coming back to visit a second or a third time, of course, and see what it is that you've got to offer each and every week. And hopefully, even if they really like it enough, tell their friends a little bit about what it is you've got going on, what your project is all about. So we've been finding that slowly here things are growing. So, um, but we really believe in working together with others if we're able to. People such as yourself, if we can manage that at all, people of somewhat like mind, and yeah, I think there's a real there's some power to that for sure, real synergy. Easier said than done, of course, because it doesn't always work out. Things don't always sail along in the smoothest way you would hope, because people's egos getting in the way. But
Hmm.
it can be done. It can be done. You just got to get the right group of people and chemistry at play, and magic does happen. I do believe.
Right. I mean, what really drew me to your guys is the variety that you bring on every Friday night. It's just not the same niche and genre. It's always something different. I mean, occasionally, like, we might get two back-to-back UFOs people on, but then you get, like, I was stoked for tonight though. Esoteric America.
Yeah, I guess we'll have
But
to
I know we'll have
find.
more of that genre down the road. So it's different. I got to give special thanks to Mr. Anderson and Kaiser for putting my name out there for the opportunity just to be the co-host with you guys. It's thus far been amazing and a blessing. I've learned a lot, and it's stuff that I've been able to bring back over here and improve the quality of this podcast over here. And I continue to look forward to learn. Like you said, it's an internship.
Oh yeah, for sure. For myself as well too. So it's really been a learning process right from the get go, and I I've noticed my delivery's gotten a little better. I've managed to kind of settle into the role a little more. And well, I think if you go back and check out some of the earlier shows that we did, some of them were hardly edited at all as far as the post production was concerned. And yeah, my rapid fire, just very manic pace to my delivery for sure, which is something that I guess might work in a comedy show. That would that sometimes seems to be effective, but maybe not the best thing when you're trying to get your um, thoughts conveyed to the listening audience in a clear as clear of a fashion as possible, so that they understand what you're trying to convey and really communicate. So, but yeah, internship. I mean, I've been doing the same thing myself once again, and just kind of learning on the fly. Really, it's you pick up bits and strands, little tips and tricks wherever you can, really, from whoever and whatever place you're able to. So some people a little more generous in that area than others, but you do what you can, I suppose. Running pretty much strictly
Right.
out of pocket right now too. Just trying to cover our operating expenses as far as the whole thing is concerned as well. With the Patreon end of things, we've got a couple supporters over there, which is great. Just people helping out with the tip jar. Maybe it's no more than a couple bucks every month tops is all they. Um, it's like a cup of coffee, or well, a flagon of grog, let's say. That's no more than that is all they end up having to cough up each and every month at the most right now. So, and that's one of the things too, that with this a little bit more free time on our hands, that we're able to actually do some of the work that we wouldn't have otherwise got around to taking care of, such as this post production business, which we do behind the scenes, where we're able to polish up. Um, After shows largely is what we're focused on now. The Rogues Gallery after shows, the premium content, which only the Patreon supporters and participants as well, they get a copy too. So, but they're the only ones who manage to get their hands on those items. But a lot of fun though, whichever way you look at it. And you're right, the diversity. I don't know if I really didn't address that head on, as far as the production, or I hate to use the word programming, but just the content is concerned, that we're not all about UFOs every night, or Bigfoot, or ghosts. It's more just, yeah, a potpourri of different
Right.
themes and show ideas for sure.
It introduces people to a lot of different genres, new people, people that are, some people are they don't really have the big audiences like some of the channels that I know I follow, and hey, Mr. A.
Greetings.
Somebody hijacking the stream.
Mr. Anderson jumped in.
Oh, geez, Mr. Static.
See, I knew that
Mr.
link
Static
worked.
dropped in. Yeah, just not on.
Technical difficulties
Are you hearing the same static that I am?
early. Yeah,
Drew?
Mr. Anderson's come in with some static.
Major static there. So, yeah, we tried to hook up. I'm not sure. Maybe you can let listeners know that we initially had tried to hook up via um, Chrome, or Firefox rather, I guess is what it
Right.
was, and I kept getting bounced and redirected to the support page, wondering what the hell's going on here. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. And then you told me, what did you say? That I guess
Google had revoked access to Firefox from using their app, and this happened shortly right after Firefox. And
maybe
now,
Mr.
truthfully,
Anderson.
if I would had my choice, I would switch back over to Firefox because their browser is a lot faster than Chrome. But
Yeah,
I can't use OBS, so I have to use Hangouts, and I'm stuck. Yeah, Mr. Anderson was having some technical difficulties on his end. Every time he'd go to talk, it came in staticky.
has he now exited?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably a good idea till he manages to get those technical issues resolved. So you're saying that OBS does not work with, is it with
It's because of my
Firefox?
connection.
Oh, I
No,
see.
it's just because of my connection. So I can't, I've never been able to use OBS, but I could use XSplit. But, while we're talking pirates, I was using pirate. Issues happen with that when they update their stuff, and you can't do the updates, and you get screwed. And now it just don't want to work and load. So
How about now?
still
No,
static.
no, probably best if you want to hang out here, Mr. Anderson. What I would suggest is just keep yourself muted there and text away if you like. That'd be the best way of doing
I don't know
things.
why he's coming in with static.
So, did you
That
have some
some of that has to do with
questions?
censorship too.
Did you have some questions for me, or did any? I'm not sure how many people you have out
Well,
there. Was if
we've got 5 or 6 in and out.
okay?
But yeah, actually I do. I mean, because we get caught up in the muck around show on Tuesdays with the news and stuff. We always forget to, get your perspective on things in South Korea.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
What exactly would you
'cause-
like to know?
oh, I mean, I know actually very little of South Korea other than, what we see here on the propaganda news. So,
Oh yeah,
we know how that works. I mean, you might even have some different takes on the news about our country that we don't see because I've seen that as, I've had a chance to travel abroad and to Brazil and stuff. The news is different. You actually find out things you don't hear about on the real news. Well, the fake
the
news.
real news. Yeah,
I correct
yeah.
myself. The fake news.
Well, yeah. There's no doubt that we're all being propagandized, and that's another function that we serve here in the underground, as it were. And Koreans do refer to the type of shows that we put together as underground. I know that some of us in the West like to refer to them as alternative, and there are those people even still who all they really have to say on the whole matter is, "Man, do you guys ever suck?" That that's the sort of genre that or category that you fall into. The boy, do you ever suck sort of category. But that's I don't think quite it. I'm saying that in jest, of course. I'm not sure if I should get that across very well or not. But anyways, yeah, it's underground is the word that they have for us here in Korea with the online streaming that we do. There's not too much in the way of podcasting here. Frankly, I've been trying to work on spreading the word a little more and encouraging people to exercise their democratic rights. Really, it's the old thing of use it or lose it. It's really a powerful tool that we have at our disposal. So why not make the most of it? Um, but there's a lot of things you could say about Korea, its history and culture and so forth. Um, I've of course gone over the whole weed issue more than a few times, so I don't really want to rehash that one, as it were, right now. But other than to say that it looks like, from the sounds of things, South Korea has a medical marijuana bill in the works. It's just sitting there on the sidelines at the moment. Who knows when it'll ever actually see the light of day? So, I mean, they could drag their feet till hell freezes over as far as that goes, because the pharmaceuticals really do the call of the shots here in so many ways, especially as far as the laws are concerned. Which, I mean, that's just the epitome of corruption, of course, where you've got these high-powered corporate interests hijacking the legal system, holding the nation's people hostage, basically, to a corrupt, um, largely greed-driven agenda. So, I mean, everyone's heard of Hyundai and Samsung and LG, I'd imagine. Those are
Yep.
big brand names all across the world, uh, all Korean. And, as far as the whole business with North Korea and the fear mongering and the Mockingbird media, I mean, just what a farce. Uh, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So, I mean, the media, they thrive, as I think most listeners here probably understand, on sensationalism and, well, tabloid journalism really is what it's all about. You need some uh, just endless exaggeration of the facts, and reality is what we see happening here all too often. Uh, both with respect to establishment Korean media as well as that in the West, of course, too. But yeah, I mean, living here, I think back in the West, I things got to the point there a number of years ago where I had like family members reaching out, contacting me, saying, "You're coming home soon, aren't you?" Like, just basically under the impression that the way that they were being influenced and mind controlled, essentially, with sitting in front of their boob tubes, that all hell was about to break loose on the peninsula. Meanwhile, here in South Korea, there's nobody really all that phased, and because we've been living under these conditions with this, well, I'm not sure what you would really refer to it as. It's like a peace treaty armistice of sorts, unofficial. Um, Apparently, it was never ratified. I believe how the story goes. So, but that's been the case now for what, almost 70 years, I
Right.
guess,
It's
more or less.
there,
Not quite.
yeah, there was never a peace treaty ever signed.
Hmm. Well, and I'll tell you what, one thing too, with respect to North Korea, the U.S. under, let's see, who was that now? Was that Truman or Eisenhower? Is, I guess, Truman. I'm figuring. So, but that the amount of military, the armaments, the bombs, and the arsenal that they dropped on North Korea apparently was larger in scale than even all of that found itself deployed or um, being dropped over the course of the entire and area of the entire Pacific theater, as it was known during World War II. So all of North Korea, in other words, like even more bombing taking place there than what the entire Pacific theater saw during World War II. If you can believe that, that's how the story goes. And I'm not sure about the nuclear end of things. There had been, I'm thinking like, depleted uranium or something like that. I don't know if it went that far exactly, but that's one reason why the North Koreans are so pissed off, and in all too many cases, I would imagine bear something of a grudge towards mostly America, is what it seems. You could even say this the West in general, I suppose. But I'd be pissed off too if that's what had happened, you know. and the way I
Oh
was
yeah.
treated. It was pretty horrific stuff. South Korea as well
Well,
too. It's pretty terrible things as well throughout the course of the war. Go ahead.
see, just in recent news this week or past couple of weeks, I seen a few photos floating around of the soldiers that came. We finally got their bodies and returns that were draped with the UN flag. Which some people found it quite disrespectful. Even I did at first till somebody explained it to me. The Korea incident, we were actually not we were fighting under NATO, so we weren't actually. That's why their coffins were actually draped in the UN flag because it wasn't our war in Korea.
Yeah, wasn't it said to be a United Nations police action?
Yeah,
Something. This
yeah.
the phraseology. Yeah, and this the way they do the linguistic gymnastics, kind of weasel their way out of any supposed uh, accountability, the legalese. Yeah, but you're right. Absolutely. That's right. So, but yeah, having the remains of these soldiers being returned back to the states. Hashtag blame Trump.
Uh huh. You know, see, I'm the one thing I have noticed up until this week when I posted the links from Tuesday night news show that really I've noticed that pirate radio, kind of slides through the censorship, unless you have Mr. Anderson on, of course. Then all kinds of things go haywire and bonkers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, right. Yeah, because we got attacked there and targeted several times over the course of the show that we put together with him just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, that was quite something. Um, what you're saying though is uh, we generally what the YouTube is kind of they just let us stew away in our kind of isolated misery via the little kind of internet ghetto, the pocket that
Mm-hmm.
we have kind of carved out for ourselves. Nobody really taking too much notice. So why bother? Just let them do their thing. They're with typically less than 100 viewers each stream that we put together. Other than when we have a more established name booked, of course,
Mm-hmm.
Grant Cameron, William Ramsey. Who else have we had in the past? A couple names escaping me. There's a few there though that people can check if they want. Thomas Sheridan was another with a couple thousand views. That's all we've got though. The biggest, most number of views or hits that we've had altogether is somewhere between maybe around 2,000 or so. That's about it. And that's just the way it goes, man. People obviously are not tuning in or dropping by our channel because we seem to offer something that is so unique and distinct from other streams, other podcasts. Um, it's more just the case that they're interested in seeing what it is that these more established names, researchers, and authors, and so forth, have to offer. And once they've heard the show, that's great. That's as far as it goes. And it's off to the next channel, I suppose. But that's okay. That's fine. That's just the way. That's the way it's all meant to be, I suppose. Another thing too is we don't buy any hits either. I've heard stories about how I don't know. I guess what for $100 you can buy 50,000 hits or something like that on YouTube,
Yeah, something like
supposedly.
that.
So yeah, forget it. All that's each one of the views that we have is purely 100% real and organic.
Yannick,
There,
yes, that's what I like about it. And the other thing that you that you when you were talking about the Patreon and stuff, the other thing nice that Pirate Radio does, they take half the proceeds that they receive and it goes back to the Secret Santa. That's something I have a lot of respect for when channels give back to the communities because that's so important, especially in the time, the holiday season, where, a lot of families are in a pinch and stuff. And, because I to work around with the Toys for Tots and stuff around this area and soup kitchens during the holidays because I don't celebrate the holidays. So it's always nice to find channels like yours and Pirate Radio that give back.
You have to, I think, really. We wouldn't do it any other way. So, you know, it's just you have to do it that way. Of course, that's especially not only flying the pirate flag, showing that you can be a pirate, but you can also be generous. But we're also, would you say, co-opting or well, another sort of banner we fly under is that of the Robin Hood too. Let's not forget that's the name
Mm-hmm. Name of
of
the
the
ship.
ship. That's what she has been christened, the Robin Hood. So yeah, uh, that's the least you would expect. So we're happy to do that. And the fact of the matter is we've not even yet gotten to the point where we've managed to cover our operating expenses. That's our goal, what we're really aiming for. And we will do it eventually here one day, one year. Might not be this year, but well, then again, you never know. Um, what is it? We've got about well, we're about halfway through the year now, a little more than halfway through. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
this year's
I
going
do know.
fast.
I do know though. Here's the thing. Once again, because we've had only I think two or three Patreon premium content items offered so far, put up for um, perusal or consumption, so that the Patreon supporters can actually get their hands on these things to this point. And we're just happy to have the time off, to chance to kind of relax, take a breather, because we've been really busting our balls, frankly, each and every week, feeling it to be, well, it's a sense of obligation, really. Obligation and a feeling of commitment to our listeners, even the people that don't necessarily support us financially. We do like to remind people that if they don't take that route, they can always either upvote, comment on, or share, remind the content. We're happy with that, and sometimes it's even better than dropping a couple bucks in the tip jar in the long run.
Right. That's a
So
spreading that word of mouth.
yeah, and the Robin Hood thing, it's like hashtag WWRHD. What would Robin Hood do? Of course he'd give
That's
back.
what that
So
means. I was stuck on that earlier today. I seen that in my tweets. Like, what's that?
yeah, yeah. So hey, pirate code. Hey, don't forget that. There's
Right.
sometimes a little bit of that at play. We do like to have fun too. It's not all about taking ourselves all too seriously. There's no reason for that, of course. Although we do tackle and address serious issues from time to time, it's important to have fun and laugh a little bit as well. Let's not forget. So, um, but no, we're happy with the way things are going. It's all very grassroots, organic, and once again, just operating strictly out of pocket to this point, working as our goal to try and cover operating expenses while at the same time, even though we haven't managed to do that, taking half of everything that comes in and putting it back directly in the hands of those who really don't have all that much when it comes to um, things uh, from a strictly monetary standpoint, or just resources that they may have at their disposal. Even if we're able to put people in touch with others, that we feel that's a success. A couple of the different cases that we've been, what is the word now? Benefactor. I always get these backwards, mixed up. It's part of my dyslectic left-handedness, I suppose. Although I must say I'm not really left-handed so much as ambidextrous, I think, really, because I write with my left hand, but I punch and do other things, throw like a baseball with my right hand. So, but which is something, I guess, a show all itself, right? The whole world of
Hmm.
the southpaws and left-handedness, and that whole the history and so on and so forth. But Free John Ford, one of our, is it benefactors? I think he's a benefactor. I believe is how you put it. Anyways, we got John Ford, James Hydrick, Carolyn Rose Goida, who's hopefully coming up next week. She's still pretty homeless, more or less, uh, based out of the state of Missouri there, over in America, stateside, of course, along with finally Richard Whipple. Those are the four main people that we really hold near and dear to our hearts as a uh, the captain does, along with the rest of the crew, of course. So, doing everything we can to help promote and support their causes and their cases. You can find information and details, shows that we put together. And I know you don't like to call them shows. I'm not sure what you prefer, conversations, interviews. But anyways,
I
what is
haven't
the word
found
you
the
prefer?
right word yet, but I can't. It's just like I can't stand the word religion.
Well, it's like,
But what do you call it?
well, yeah, show, interview, conversation. I don't know. I mean, hand me a thesaurus, so see what synonym we can come up with. But that's fine. That's fine. That's not a problem. We've all got our own. We can respect each other's
I
differences. Hopefully, that's if we
Hermit
can do
Nick
that.
had a good question. Now
Go ahead.
I guess it's kind of referred addressed to both of us. What is our reasons for us starting to speak out and talk about the things we do, invite the people on? I mean, for me, it's like, and on the Pirate Radio podcast, before I was co-hosting, I got to watch the one where they were talking about breaking down the case of John Ford, and that following week, that because they gave it a little attention. That Pirate Radio gave it a little attention. It helped get his court case back in the court systems and moving faster. It got media attention. What was it? A newspaper, wasn't it, to publish an article to bring it to light? But that was some of the reasons we speak out about things like John Ford. I mean, where's the due process? I mean, look how long he's been locked up in a mental state, waiting for a court case. It's ridiculous, and those are the things for me that I find intriguing. And like I said, I do got to give thanks to Mr. Anderson for kind of leading me over towards Pirate Radio podcast. You know, it's like what he got me with a Jedi mind fuck, but it happens. It was something shiny, different. It's like, what's this? Mr. Anderson's sharing it. This has got to be interesting, and it was, and I was hooked. I mean, I speak out for various things. I mean, I've covered so many topics on this channel. I try to stay away from the trending stuff, because the trending stuff's usually just a distraction that everybody keeps retweeting, and they bury all of our tweets under those retweets, so they don't even get to see good quality content, such as Pirate Radio Podcast, that good of quality of content, because I do ramble on like I am right now. So I'm going to revert the question back to Japhy here.
Where is this question in the YouTube chat?
Yeah, it was he just asked what was our reasons for speaking out and talking about the things we do.
Well, like I was um, sort of getting at a little earlier, I ended up not having much choice in the matter. I don't know if you know this or not, but I found myself getting shanghaied. So uh, it's quite a backstory, real long. It's kind of fun as far as the history goes. Um, you have to go back to the well, if the name AWOL Aaron means anything to anyone, and I'd have to share a link here where I blogged the details and particulars of the whole ordeal. Although this in particular, from this precise angle, not so much. But blab.im was a social media, an online kind of networking and information sharing platform of sorts, which ended up, as it turned out, having a real strong Middle Eastern presence for some reason. Um, and I think when I say that, primarily as well, places like Saudi Arabia, if you can believe that, there seemed to be a real significant, large component of its users that appeared to be from places like Saudi Arabia. I would say like about almost like a quarter, somewhere in that area or neck of the woods. What happened was just during the course of, I believe we'd initially launched our first ever Secret Santa. And this is not just Secret Santa, it's Operation Secret Santa, folks. So let's get that straight. Remember this, because it's not the Secret Santa that you find so often in the offices where you see a gift exchange taking place between fellow co-workers. The Operation Secret Santa is more focused on helping the poor, the needy, the homeless, the destitute, those who really could stand to benefit from something of a hand up. So we were in Blab. Secret Santa was just unfolding when suddenly, from out of the blue, late December, of course, here once again, now too, let's not forget, this scruffy, somewhat bewildered or bewildering his appearance. He was a grizzled looking character popped up on my screen. It looked like he was just in the process of waking up, dragging himself out from the corner that he had managed to passed out in probably the night before. And we got to talking, shooting the shit, and so forth. And I think I made the comment he looked a little bit like a pirate. And one thing led to another, and we talked about maybe working together on a joint project, as a team. I would never have done something like this on my own. Are you kidding? It's just not the way I operate. I need somebody else to work with or to give me a bit of a push. That's the only way things like this seem to happen with me. Music, historically as well too, with my uh, the recording that I've done in the studio and that sort of thing. Same kind of deal. Anyways, we got together. We teamed up the course of well, he only stuck around for the first maybe half a dozen, maybe 8 shows tops, and then he completely fell off the radar. Hence the nickname AWOL Aaron. He's completely off doing his own thing. He sometimes, people might notice if they're over on Facebook, shares these motivational videos. I guess which mostly deal with positive thinking and how to. I'm not sure what it is exactly. Really strange sort of conversations. I'm not too able to relate to, frankly, because I don't understand why it is that he just endlessly thinks he needs to keep talking about how to motivate himself than just getting up off his ass, getting out there and doing something. That's my thing. Hopefully, people can understand what I'm trying to get at there. But so, and that was it. Pretty much a dark night of the soul there for a while. We managed to produce about 10 or 12 shows. There was a period of transition there where I had to take everything over, in the sense of I was fully responsible for all the technical aspect, or end of things. And really, it was pretty Mickey Mouse for uh, for one show in particular, until thankfully Tom Schaefer, aka Tommy Shutter, showed up just at the right time. And it is interesting how so often the timing of things, where people do, such as yourself, Drew, courtesy of Mr. Anderson. Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. It's really great the way that things, to this point at least, have managed to evolve and everything falling into place. But yeah, Tommy Shutter showed up there and managed to give us a few tips as far as the live streaming end of things was concerned, and was able to take care of the technical business, and just pretty much take things from there. World Pirate Radio Podcast Network, the WPRPN thing, uh, came about during this time as well too. So it's just been something where, it, as it is, I find myself here in Korea somewhat sheltered and isolated. There's probably a better word even still I could possibly come up with. It's just escaping me at this particular moment, but that's fine. But yeah, it's a chance for me to connect with people out there around the world. I am a node. Japhy is a node. And just as Drew is a node, and Mr. Anderson, and I see here Rob the Man and Joe Emanon in the live chat here, we're all nodes, and we've all got our networks. And for me, it's just a chance to reach out and talk to people, engage in quality conversation once a week. Now, because of the news show, it's a different format, of course, so it takes a little different approach, which is fun.
Yes.
I really enjoy that too. So I don't know what to say really, other than, here's the thing: I'd been listening to podcasts for a number of years. And this all only came about back in 2000 of I guess December of 2016, if I've got my dates straight here. So, we're pretty new. We're pretty new kind of thing, all things considered. Within the larger scheme of it all. And I, I just it's just one of those things, I suppose, that it's just answering the call. So, as a kid, when I was younger, there were people that I remember constantly saying, "Hey, you've got a great voice. You should be in radio." And I did go and actually do an interview at one point. There's a bit of a story to that. I don't want to get too bogged down or sidetracked. It's kind of funny, actually. I'll maybe save it for another occasion. But the way that all kind of played out, I was about 16 at the time. But it just now seems to make sense, where you hear that from enough people that I guess you start thinking about that. And then the realization comes to mind that, well, geez, maybe we should do something with this. It's like if a woman has a hot body. I don't know, is that the best analogy? Use it or lose it, baby. So I'm
I
here to
mean,
use my
I have
voice and
nothing
hopefully a bit of my wit.
against some good eye candy.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Pirates, they can always, yeah, pirates and wenches go hand in hand, don't they? So we're always happy to welcome a fair wench or two amongst our midst. I don't know if I really answered that question all that well. It's a long, convoluted story, frankly,
Right.
that really I need to write about, I think would be the best way of doing it.
Yeah, Christine, it was quite an interesting moment to pop in. We're talking about eye candy and wenches.
Guy talk. Yeah.
But but yeah, that's what shocked me. I was actually shocked to hear when I first time I heard your voice. It was like that reminded me of somebody that I would listen to on the radio. It's like, why is this guy on the radio? Or at some, or you're hearing some at a sports venue or something. It's like this guy's got the perfect voice, and that's unique because I can't. I mean, I can't personally stand listening to my own voice. That's why I do prefer live streams over recording and having to sit there and do my own voice. I mean, no, I mean, even once we get that feedback when we get ready to start our shows, how we can hear ourselves in the background, I'll just send chills up and down my spine. It's like a fingernails going across the crossboard. I'm like, ooh, man. And the worst part is, I'm saying that about myself. I can only imagine what the audience thinks about my voice. But hey, I got to get a good laugh out of it from time to time.
Why be so judgmental? So I don't know. Don't worry about it. I mean, we're all endowed with certain gifts or lack, I suppose, thereof, and that's just the way that. Well, I guess you work with what you've got, the hand you've been dealt. So make the most of what you got, and hopefully, things will work out for the best. So, but yeah, as far as radio goes, I never thought of that until here's the thing. Well, like I said, back as a teenager, that was when I went in for the interview. Never at all stopped to think about going into broadcasting school or anything like that. I think that would have probably helped me tremendously as far as being able to actually, um, you know, appear on air, as it were, whether radio, television, you name it. Here now, of course, it's the internet, so we're doing the podcasting thing. I was mostly fixated and fascinated with, committed to music of all things. That was my big pipe dream for the longest time. So, and then eventually made the transition here to, visit Korea and work on building a career over here in Asia. Now, I'm going to try to provide a link with, or a link to listeners in the YouTube chat, having to do with an article I wrote called Radio Wars. And this really goes back to where a guy named Leo Ashcraft sort of scouted me out, as it were. And I didn't understand right off the bat why it was exactly that he had, zeroed in on me, as it were. But I guess it was because of the resonant, what do we say, the resonance of my vocal cords or something like that. But it's like having that means nothing, frankly. Let's not forget, people. You can have a really great looking shiny car that when you open the hood, there's no bloody engine in it. So it's pretty it's empty, right? And doesn't have what it takes to make its way down the highway. So that's no good at all. So there's a real art, I think, and a real talent that is required from people who uh, decide to become on air or otherwise, media personalities. You've got to, for one, have a respectable grasp on the English language. Secondly, you've got to be able to think on your feet and in the moment. That's important too, of course. Otherwise, we come off looking like complete either jackasses or ignoramuses. So we don't want that. But, these things aside, it's just fun, I suppose, to have a chance, once again, every once in a while, to connect with people using the technology we have in place this day and age. Wouldn't have been able to do this 50 years ago. Reach out across the world and, connect with people, engage in quality conversation. Or article right now. Actually, the one I was telling you about here. It's I
You're gonna
blogged
have to
on.
type in chat once so I can give you a wrench. And man, I'm gonna quit trying to type and spell because I just spelled wrong.
Let's see. You can still hear me, can you?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. No. See, I'm a newbie once again to well, that's not going to work. To Google Hangouts. So let's see if there we go.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. DuckDuckGo, Radio Wars, Japhy Medium, Radio Wars, Japhy Medium. There's a article I blogged there a couple of years ago, and as you can tell, as I think we've all realized and discovered here over the course of the last few minutes, I really need to blog something which outlines how it is that I did get into doing what it is, that I've been up to here the last little while, and just laying it out in a little more kind of chronological fashion to make it clearer for people, because I think a lot of people are maybe a little unclear or confused, although that can sometimes work in one's favor, of course, too. you know because how's the old expression go? If you can't dazzle them with your brilliance, baffle them with your bullshit.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes.
Fake for me too. It's a
Fake it till you make it.
fake it till you make it. There you go. That's right. So, any more questions? Who do I see? We got Joe Emmon on there, and
Yeah.
who else do we got there? We got Christina Taft has dropped in. No idea who. Hermit Nick, is that a friend of yours?
He's a new subscriber. Just
Okay.
picked him up this week. I think he was courtesy of Be Rich.
Ah, well, and just to
I picked up.
remind people
Yeah.
too, I guess
Speaking
we're
of
going
which,
to
yeah, I
try.
just picked up a few new ones this week, and I want to thank all the new subscribers because I have a tendency to forget to do that from time to time. Go ahead.
Yeah, your channel's doing really well. I just popped in last week and noticed that you were getting some pretty decent numbers there. So hopefully be able to maintain that momentum. That's really good. Way to go. But we've also got another half hour here is what it looks like, is kind of what I'd agreed to do as far as a formal end of
Right.
things. It is Saturday
You
here
might
in
be the
Korea
first
too,
guest
so
to
we can't,
get away with that too.
what's that exactly?
Everybody, my channel is well known for not being able to do anything under an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Oh, I see.
I've got
Well,
3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours.
well, that's why we do the premium content. You see, you do the after
Mm-hmm.
show that only the Patreon subscribers or participants, they get a, that's our policy. Like the participants, even if you're not a Patreon subscriber, or you haven't been maybe wiring, donating tokens via mines, or like little PayPal donations or whatever, that if you participate, you still get a copy, of course. It's only fair. So that's the way that that we do things with Pirate Radio podcasts, and hopefully we can maybe do that again today here with
Yeah,
you
we can do
as
that.
we sure. um so I'm just thinking what else. I'm not sure if you had prepared notes, that you really were questions you're really dying to ask me, or I'm trying to keep up with the flow of the conversation here too in the chat. So it's great to see for the most part, really, it's a similar kind of turnout and group of motleyed group of riffraff and characters that we see with the weekly stream via Pirate Radio podcasts. So that's great to have the crossover though too. That's this is like seeds blown to the wind, basically. Like
Uh
you can take the message, head out there and spread the message, folks. We're leaving it in your hands.
huh.
Um,
Yes, the crew of misfit scalawags.
that's right. Yes, Buccaneers, and well,
Mm.
speaking of which, Black Sails. I think I was asking you about that show. You have not yet had a chance to see it. Maybe a few in the listening
I've
audience
seen
have.
maybe a couple episodes.
Come again?
I've caught a couple episodes, but I haven't got to actually sit down and watch the whole thing.
Was that just via the regular television cable,
That was
or
just me, just happened to heading downstairs, and my dad was watching it because he actually watches it. I'm usually doing a podcast or something, so I don't, real truthfully, I don't turn the TV on much. I don't know.
okay,
I've just
okay.
gotten, I have no need for the idiot box unless it's, enjoyment for like maybe some sports program because I need a break from the internet. And usually I can think of better things than sports. Plenty of stuff to do.
Yeah, I'm not so much a sports fan these days as when I was a kid. I used to be more into, baseball. I always enjoyed that, and football, hockey, of
Ah,
course, in Canada.
oh, I'm
But
gonna have to remember that one.
what's that?
That goes right along with the fuckery, motherfucking ears
What's that?
in chat, motherfucking ears, some fuckery. Yep. Can't say I dropped the f bomb.
I like your photo too, by the way. I'm not sure where you picked that up. The lighthouse, the wallpaper there looks like a pretty real weathered old sea dog. In fact, it might even be. I've never actually met Captain Long John Sinclair in person. In my mind's eye, though, that is more or less the impression that I have of him, almost a Blackbeard type character.
Hmm.
So, Carolyn Rose Goida will be coming up here, hopefully this next week. I'm going to make the most of the time that uh, we've got here, the duration of things to catch up and get on top of. Well, you and yourself have actually agreed to do a little bit of the post production. I'm going to try to prep the files the best I can via compression and just generally clean them up so that when I upload them to the G drive for you, you can take a look at them there and easily deal with them, hopefully, with
Yeah.
just smoothing things over as far as just the audio, the clicks and the peaks and the little glitches that really take away from a more overall sort of pleasurable listening experience. That's really what, of course, when you sit down and listen to a podcast, any MP3, you don't want something that's filled with all kinds of all
Lighter
kinds of
clicking in the
technical
background
garbage.
somewhere.
No, it's just a noise made to no ends. I'm sure, especially if people are they're coming along and tipping you a dollar or two. We got Kelly Freeman there. He's good for $5 a pop every item of premium content there. So um, he's great though. Real salt of the earth, kind of heart of gold type. I shouldn't really talk about this, but to hell with it. We actually lost three $1 Patreon subscribers. They hadn't really been around that long, but they flaked out. I mean, what's going on? I reached out to all of them, asking them what's going on, like what gives, and like, are you having money problems? Do you have a problem with some of our content? You know, is this maybe a technical issue or foul up? Never heard back from a single one of them. All three of them. So what does that say? Are they? I don't know. They feel maybe too embarrassed or ashamed to respond, or they're just, what is it? This passive aggressive thing?
Well,
Maybe they were spies. Maybe they're like covert CIA operatives. Who the hell knows?
yeah. Well, see, I've see, I don't on my Patreon. I don't do no premium stuff. It's all it's just a dumping site for me, another platform that I can reach a different audience with. So I don't really do the Patreon thing, but from people that I know and talk with, sometimes what they get people that'll become a pre, because you don't pay to the end of the month, so they'll just click that thing, and right before the end of the month comes, they'll bail, so they don't have to pay the stuff, and basically they're getting your premium content for free
Yeah, we don't have it set up that way though. We have it set up not on a monthly basis, but per item. So
per item. Yep, per
if you,
creation.
yeah, if you're good for like $1 per item, all we've it'll have cost you $2 now for all of 2018. That's it, because we've only managed to produce, I think it's either two or three premium items. So it's either $2 or $3. So really less than even the cost of a, once again, flagon of grog is
Grog.
what people are looking at there. And they get this great behind the scenes um, experience. Really, we've got music, of course, that we add to kind of the texture of things. So it's sort of like a jukebox type way of doing things without hopefully getting uh, to be too much of a distraction. And the things that go on there behind the scenes, only people that have actually been there really know about. So you can just imagine, though, it's a lot of the sort of issues and talking points that you'll never hear
Pirate Joe
on the front
Iman.
end.
I hope I got that right. He said he just typed, got news from John. Kelly says only remaining alleged intended victim picked up by FBI for tax fraud and embezzlement. I think
Wow,
he's referring to John Ford on that.
that's right. They're all crooks, man. Every single one of the people that were behind framing John Ford. I hope his lawyer hears about this too, because that is something which hopefully they can make admissible to the courts that will serve to better bolster John's defense and his case, of course, where his lawyer makes very clear to either the judge or the jury, and if it was me, I'd probably want to go anytime I could via jury, of course. That's a very ancient practice and right, fundamental to any democracy. Uh, Jury trial rights, obviously, with the it's the nullification. Let's not forget too. There's that angle as well, possibly jury nullification. Something in Korea. You were asking earlier about Korea. Well, here's one thing that I've heard from the wife. They for one, apparently the type of legal system, and it's not justice, folks. Let's get that straight. So, be careful when you're just find yourself or catch yourself parroting the phrase justice system. Don't do that. It's a legal system. Big difference. Very little justice to any phony, corrupt, crooked legal system. But yeah, it's a German model, I guess, is what they imported here in Korea. I'm not sure when that is. Probably after the war is what I'm guessing. Because let's not forget, it was the United Nations effort, major American influence here, where Protestantism really took off following the war. Jesus, in the form of the various airdrops, food packets, packages, and so on and so forth, came from the sky to bail out the Korean people. following the closure. I guess even during the height of the war too, that was a major factor. From what I can gather, in having so many Koreans convert to Protestantism, um, which along the way found them becoming, in many cases, big supporters of Israel too. Interestingly enough, just the way things seem to work out there for some strange reason. But yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of got a little sidetracked there, I suppose. And now's the time. You know how Mr. Anderson talked about where you should, when we're
Right.
conversing from time to time, jump in.
Jump in, and I'm getting ready to. There's a couple things mentioned that I actually kind
Oh,
of
I'm
want
sorry. Jury
your opinion
nullification.
on.
Jury nullification. That's all we got to do. Because go
Yep.
back to the original point there in German legal system, and that's critical stuff. People, you really need to practice that and see that it's upheld, and that in cases like with what John has here, if at all possible, use that as grounds for completely throwing his case out, having him dismissed and ultimately freed. The
Right.
fact that he was railroaded, man, this is textbook classic. I mean, you couldn't get any more corrupt, I don't think, could you? Modern day America, Suffolk County, it's Crookhaven, New York,
Crookhaven,
said to be one of the most corrupt places in America.
and one of the most
And there's
haunted
poor
places in America.
haunted. Are you talking Amityville?
Oh yeah, that whole area is
Oh,
paranormal hotspot.
yeah, yeah,
I
interesting.
actually know somebody that lived right next to the Amityville house.
Yeah, that's kind of, well, yeah, well, we could
Yeah.
really get distracted, I guess, and bogged
Yeah.
down in a conversation regarding that. But I'm not a believer in the Amityville. From what I've heard, at least, that it seems it was it's a total. There's something funny going on though, because it was more like after the fact that it was revealed to be a fraud, and then suddenly strange things started. It really did happen to people.
Well,
Is the kind of story that I've heard. You know what I mean? So,
but that's actually there is something to that. It's like urban legends. I know I do that, kind of do that over on KOTR, urban legend and folk legends. Sometimes when these legends and these stories get created, they can actually become manifest. You get enough people believing it, and stuff can actually start happening.
right.
In the Tibetan culture, I think it's Tibetan culture, they call them topas. So
Yeah.
there is some interesting theories to that.
What are they called?
Topas?
How do you spell it?
Ah, you would ask. Let me.
Okay, what does it mean though? Let's just not so
It
much the
basically it
spelling
means
is
you hip to the story of the golem, right?
hmm
How they created the golem.
sure.
That's what a topa is. The golem is
Interesting.
actually the classic representation of a topa, something that you sit there and project your thoughts into to basically create it. I mean, it's kind of a complex Jewish story on the creation of the golem, but the Tibetan culture has, pretty sure it's the Tibetan culture. It's one of the, meditative cultures where, they can create something just by projecting that thought and meditating on it.
Well, the voodoo dolls as well.
Hmm.
That's, I think, another sort of example, perhaps. Yeah. Certain magic rituals, I guess, what practitioners of, I guess it could be either white or black magic. Sometimes they hear talk of the left hand path or what have you. But, anyways, what they look for are fingernail clippings, maybe lockets of hair, things like that to conduct their magic rituals. And I guess it's either for positive, a beneficial outcome, or more negative, where people are attempting to curse them or have bad luck come their way. It all
Yeah,
depends on
it's
the intention, correct?
yes, TULPA is a concept of mysticism and the paranormal being of a being or object which is created through spiritual or mental powers.
Jeez, how about that, eh? And that would be physical
Um,
or strictly
it,
mental?
the it could be non-physical. Now I don't know how many people actually believe in the story that the Jews actually created a golem, but in their tradition they believe that I think it was like four people. They used the letter Aleph and created by using just the Hebrew letter Aleph the golem. They molded the clay and gave it life, basically gave it a spirit and gave it. Thought I did mod him. Uh, nope. Yeah, I did. But the other thing I actually wanted to bring up tonight because something you pointed out on Tuesday's show, and Rob pointed it out to remind me. He's talking about the weather modifications and stuff.
Yeah.
You talked about you know how governments and stuff could use the wet weather as a weapon in the financial markets.
Sure.
And I like maybe get your opinion on that because you touched on it and we kind of got away from it. We just let that part hanging, and it was like me and Rob got to talking later. I think the next day about it, and started pointing out things. Well, if they could control the crops, whether they get rain or we get these fires, it could impact the economy on could send prices skyrocketing for the price of milk, meat.
Right. Yeah. And if they know ahead of time, just like with 9/11, right? With the stock prices, what was it? What airline company? Delta or something like that. All the stocks were dumped just like a couple days or a week before 9/11. Very peculiar. That's what often investigators look for, are these anomalies where you have really dramatic, extreme types of trading or activity taking place in one sector or another, targeting one commodity, let's say, or another. So, no, you're bang on the mark. I think you get it. I think you get it. Hopefully, our listeners do as well too. That the powers that be are really quite easily able to cash in. Uh, it's did John F. Kennedy. That is a clip that I think Carolyn Rose Goida shared with us via the Pirate Radio podcast chat group we have put together on Facebook, of which, for the most part, I am not able to even share a single URL now these days.
Oh,
If
they
it's not
got me
one
today
thing,
too.
if it's not one thing, man, on Facebook, it's another. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. It's, you know what I mean, it's like you can't do this, and then they're gonna and then they kind of ease up on it, and then that's another thing that suddenly starts acting up with sharing abilities or the speed of something, or like, I mean, they had me flagged for spam and thrown in Facebook jail repeatedly, which has not really happened now since what's his face, Zuckerberg, got dragged up on the carpet there in front of, I guess, both Congress and Senate. And it's funny that it's just, I've not been put in, as I'd imagine a lot of people, because they've tweaked the algorithms presumably to not be so ridiculously hard ass. And yeah, that was just happening nonstop. So it's something though. So, but John F. Kennedy and the speech on controlling the world. If you want to control the world, you're going to want to control the weather. It's the thinking, basically. I'm not sure if he talked about that point in particular, but he did know the importance and potential power, as well as just the realization of how they're even back in the early 60s during the time of his administration, the technology did exist. There was this, once again, if people haven't taken the time to track down the information, go to DuckDuckGo, type in World Weather Warfare Treaty, Geneva, 1977. Now, it'll come up. The results will be environmental convention, something or another. But it's interesting how that works. When you type in World Weather Warfare Treaty, they know what you're talking about, but
Right.
they spin it in a more euphemistic. That's the way they cloak it in more euphemistic, terms. So, and here's the thing. Once again, the question that I raised just earlier this past week was, well, if they had, first of all, what are they doing signing a treaty back in the mid 1970s? Secondly, how far do you think they've come in over 40 years now in developing these technologies? You would imagine they've become a little more sophisticated and powerful, perhaps too. So let's not forget, for all his, the ways that we're able to criticize the guy and lash out at him, his lack of criticism of Israel and so forth, for example, and just the way he just seems to spin endless disinformation, his the histrionics, just the theatrics, just the hyperbole, let's say, and the way he exaggerates, and the way he's such just a whore for cash. Alex Jones. One of the good things that he's talked about over the years and shared with his listeners is the fact of how in the Air Force, in the Air Force's own papers, that there's a famous PDF you can find, which goes by the name of, I believe it's Weather as a Force Modifier, Owning the Weather by 2025, something
Mm-hmm.
along those lines. So, I mean, by 2025, yeah, how about like by 2018? Or, they've been doing this for years, people. I mean, geez, Carolyn, once again, uh, God bless her, shared a recent link as well too to a fire NATO, I guess, out of what's happening in California. I'm not sure if you've been following things or up to
Yes,
speed on the
that's not the
latest there.
only one.
You see the fire NATO? Big
Uh
one.
huh. There was one out in Colorado too. I think there's been one couple out in Greece because they've got wildfires going on out there too.
A lot of problems with their open borders as well, from what I understand, over there in Greece. Hopefully manage to get a better handle on things here as time goes on. Thanks for adding us as mods. You might want to do the same with Johnny Canuck too. He's a friend of
Yeah,
ours.
I got that one.
Okay, so well, there you go. There, people can click on the link there. Added via the Daily Mail. Check that one out.
But I mean, I heard about that. The weather modifications. Talked about the Kennedy mentioned something about it, but I couldn't believe it even before even then. With who was it? Not was it Eisenhower? The first one to actually bring it before Congress before Kennedy was president,
Bring what before Congress?
talking about weather warfare and controlling the weather.
Geez, I don't know. Was it?
I think that was
I mean,
covered in her link.
well, it was Eisenhower. It was Eisenhower, but did he talk about that? I only saw it in Kennedy speaking on the whole matter, and it's interesting how little we see or hear about this. So, I mean, trust big media, of course, to ignore everything that's important and to emphasize everything that just suits their own elitist agenda, because that's really who they're serving. They're they are there to parrot the talking points that are handed to them via their
Ooh,
teleprompters and the script that is presented to them on a day-to-day basis to serve these
right.
globalist interests. Yes, I can say that for sure, as well as in many cases Zionist. Frankly, we have to be able to criticize Israel. Jones, of course, says and he doesn't admit to this too often. I've only heard him speak to the matter once. It was more or less off record, being very candid because he's never all that honest regarding the issue. But the reason he doesn't criticize Israel and their right to exist, which they shouldn't, I don't see that at all. Frankly, that they have any place there. The whole thing is just is a mess. But anyways, that they've got what is it? Between 300 and 400 nuclear warheads. So, and that goes
Mhm.
back to the Kennedy administration as well. James Jesus Angleton, folks, he's the linchpin to the whole thing. These high level treason. He was really instrumental with the way that he just gave Israel a total green light and a free pass the whole way along back in the day there. And Kennedy was very concerned about the whole matter. And some people even speculated that may be one of the reasons why he ended up getting shot that day in Dallas. So,
Well, here's something else that's not being talked about by nobody, but it keeps every now and then it keeps slipping in there. Israel's, pretty much will allied themselves with Saudi Arabia on a lot of things here of late, to
well,
where
they're
even
ISIS,
Saudi
right?
Arabia has went to bat for Israel on a
Yeah.
few matters, and
Well,
nobody's talking about it.
the House of Saud, they're crypto Jews. Apparently, that's how the story goes. Crypto, so they don't openly, share that information with the wider world, but that's who they are. They're all the same family. So, keep it in the family. And they are ISIS too. There's no doubt about that. The way that Trump has handled the whole situation, quite interesting. Quite interesting, to say the least. So, I don't know. I think he's done relatively well, as best as one could expect, frankly, as far as foreign policy is concerned. And isn't it interesting, too, to note the reports that I keep hearing and that are constantly coming across our desk over courtesy of, you know, pirate radio podcasts and the wider WPRPN network, that the domestic economy is doing the best it has in years as far as a number of different areas and sectors, including minority employment or unemployment levels being at record lows, women, highest employment rates, I think, in history is what the story goes, and just general unemployment rates quite going, doing quite well. So I don't know if this is the truth or not, but it's interesting uh, to to consider and reflect upon. And you got to work on getting to the bottom of things, of course, too.
Right.
Hashtag fact check.
Hmm.
So, but isn't that you know once again, I think as regular listeners hopefully realize that I try to keep an open mind, whether it's Obama or Trudeau or whoever, it doesn't matter, just X, fill in the blank, Trump, it does, Santa Claus. They get a report card. Okay, that's the way it works. It's nothing. I have no dog in the fight. I'm just a spectator, right? And I try to remain an arm's length distance and provide and present them with a honest critique in a whole number of different areas. So the way that he's now, talk is cheap, and that's all he's really done to this point. I'm not sure what there is of substance to this point, but his attorney general, Jeff Sessions, I guess, is, rumor has it, he's borderline senile, believe it or not, suffering from like some kind of dementia. And it's not a joke either when people say that. So, but this goes back into the whole business of how he recently, about a month or so ago, made the comment regarding states' rights for pot, basically, so that leaving it up to the states to rule on how they like to deal with the whole issue, which I think is great. Like, I mean, it doesn't, like, if Obama would have said that, I would have said that's great. It doesn't matter, right? So, and that's one of the few things where, at least with Trudeau, he finally, I will give him credit for that one thing, I suppose, to a certain degree. I like, of course, as they say, always the devil's in the details, if you know that expression or not. So let's
Hmm.
let's check out the fine print here and see what the real implications of all of this might be. But as far as things like, well, Trudeau's, he's got, there's so many bad things about the guy, frankly, as far as immigration and turning his back on people, former expats and Canadian natives, citizens themselves, types like Richard Whipple, who finds himself stranded abroad overseas there in Poland with his wife and young child, who just last year, I guess is what it was, found herself hospitalized because of, I think it was dehydration, as a matter of fact. They were one of the causes that we did our best to champion over the course of this past year's Operation Secret Santa. And we're hoping that everyone listening to today's show, of course, will be a part of this year's campaign. And, it's a Christmas, it's a talent telethon extravaganza. Something, speaking of Alex Jones once again, it's interesting to note how we had been running our campaign for a couple of days this past year, and then suddenly he picked up on the whole thing, interestingly enough, and started promoting his own Christmas extravaganza. So that could have been just a coincidence, I suppose, too. But I believe, as I've mentioned before, he also was running a bit of a pirate show of types, or at least trying to work that angle back during the course of the Republican National Convention. Just, I guess, what was it back? You know, uh, just to lead up to the recent most recent election. So, could it be just coincidental? I don't know. Just these things that are interesting to note. Who really knows when it comes right down to it?
Well, I mean, I think that was the been what I pointed out for a while on some things. All the censorship bullshit that we're dealing with, especially is they're right now. They're using Alex Jones to come after all of us. He's the easiest one, and it's designed that way.
Because
But
he's such a
that's beside the
goofball,
point.
you
When it's
mean?
all the
Because he's making everybody that as an alternative researcher, investigator, or has their own podcast that's outside the mainstream look like a kook. Is that what you're saying?
well, not so much that. I mean, me personally, I think he's a CIA plant. That's my
Well, I
personal
like to know
opinion.
his. I like to know what's going on there with. There is, what is it? It's not DynCorp, Stratfor. These nifty little military acronyms. I like to know the angle there. And of course, you and I behind the scenes have kind of talked a little bit about this, and
Hmm.
we'll continue to hash it over, I suppose. Maybe until we attract a little more attention, people start to whip things up into more of a fury and a firestorm. Who knows? Not that it already hasn't been hashed over multiple times in various other channels, of course. But Melissa and Aaron Dykes, who did a lot of, I think they
Hmm.
both worked for him at one point or another. You talking about these non-disclosure agreements they have to sign. Jack Blood, another personality who did a great expose on Jones, kind of behind the scenes, a little inside baseball. John, excuse me, I got a mosquito flying here in front of my face. John B. Wells. It's interesting to note so much like online that is published and up there for grabs. This is one of the reasons I've got as a part of our ship's digital library here. So many different drives that we're able to store information on, and ideally freely share with our friends and fellow pirate manies. That's the whole point. But yeah, John B. Wells himself, had a critique of Jones that was online for a time and then suddenly gone. It just completely
Mm-hmm.
disappeared. He took it down. Somebody took it down. It's gone. But I got it archived here somewhere, and if I ever come across it, I'll be sure to upload it. So, I'm really at my wit's end, frankly, and one man a network does not make. The point being, of course, we need everybody to be pulling their weight and to be doing their share. And ideally, the plan is, if you've read the ship's articles, hopefully everyone's managed to get a copy of the ship's articles, you'll be rewarded accordingly as things continue to grow here. That's the point. That's really what we're aiming for. We have a line of merchandise we like to develop. If there's any artistic or creative types out there, people that like to put pirate or outlaw type designs together, you can be cute, you can be sexy, you can be serious. Kid stuff, that's on the table as well too. Yar me hearties. All kinds of little, pirate themed apparel with the WPRPN brand name, of course, as a part of what it is that we're offering people. Half of everything that we do manage to generate profit wise, in that case, for the merchandise standpoint, goes directly back to charity. Uh, and as far as just the straight up donations, half of that period goes back into the community coffers and is there as part of the communal kitty to help people over the course of, as you pointed out earlier, yeah, the real kind of crescendo to things is Operation Secret Santa, and that's really where over the course of, well, starting December 15th. I know it's a long ways from now, but we need to do our best to get organized and to stay focused and on track. If people haven't had a chance to check out what we've done over the past couple of years, take a look at what we've archived there in our YouTube, the video area where we have the archives in place, of course, and hopefully you're not bored uh, too terribly to tears. But we have music, Christmas music that we stream, and we also, not only are we accepting donations from the outside world, but we simply during the campaign want to know about what's going on in your part of the world. What sort of charity do you see taking place? What can you share with us? What can you report on? And yeah, it is Secret Santa too. So if you are a donor or someone who would like to help out, you can remain completely anonymous. We, I mean, last year it was really good. We continue to grow each year. There's no doubt about that. So, and once again, it's a strictly grassroots uh, effort. People working together, making a little Christmas magic happen. So, really looking forward to things this coming December 15th, I guess, is when we'll be kicking things off and running for the course of the next 10 days or so, approximately. But yeah, man, hey, it's been great chatting with you. And I'm glad that we had a chance to do this. So, uh, if you want, we can put together a little premium content now, kind of wrap things up here and head on more to the back end of things and have a bit of a conversation we're able to archive there for our Patreon listeners, along with anybody that wants to join us. So, whatever you want to do, man.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to showcase the website off real quick.
Tommy Shutter, big shout out to him. So yeah, he gave things a bit of a facelift there. We got to get in there. I mean, when I say we, I mean me, and others can join me if they want. Um, the standard. I'm not sure how many people in the listening audience are familiar with WordPress or not, but we have the standard format in place, the tools that we're working with there. as well as there's a new, I'm not even sure what you would call it exactly, just a new way of kind of editing and publishing things as well too that Tom imported and put into place, hoping to get more familiar with things. We had to transition, kind of change everything over from the pages as they were to simple posts for things like the calendar that go back as far as now a couple of years, of course. So, yeah, he really had his hands full. Did a great job. We got to get in there once again and just try to better lay things out in as optimal and orderly a fashion as we can possibly manage. Things are looking
Like
good, though, for sure.
the other
Definitely a lot
thing
better than it was before.
that I
Mm-hmm.
like, one of the newer features you guys have gotten is the video archives. Not only can you find Pirate Radio podcast on YouTube and all the videos, you can also come over here and find all the videos and watch them from right here as well. Plus, it allows you to, check out the upcoming shows for Friday night. And, then there's always archive.org. I've got all the links in the description for all the places you can find Pirate Radio podcast. Check them out. I mean, I've got to admit, they put out some great quality content. I mean, he's like I said, like I stated in the beginning of the show, you just have that voice. You can just sit there and listen to, and these, just the variety of genres of guests. It's amazing. It's rich with content. There might be something that you don't want to listen to. There's always something right next to that video that would probably spark your interest. That's what I like. I mean, I like variety. I mean, that's obvious. I'm subscribed to over 300 channels just on YouTube, and it's different people from different genres and niches because everybody's got an opinion and view, and we learn from those opinions and views. You know, we're not always going to agree with everything, and that's good because we're going to learn from those disagreements too. What we don't. You've experienced something that maybe I haven't, and we'll learn from those. It doesn't have to be an argumentative debate. It's just being open-minded enough to listen, and that's some of the problem with a lot of these platforms today. Everybody gets caught in their box, in that label, can't step outside of it. You know, just like the censorship. It's not about what we're talking about. What it is, they got mad because a man did something that no one else has done prior. Use social media, and this is kind of what our Constitution was designed about. We the people, us, could be that president, could be that mayor, governor, senator, statesman. Now we
I,
have the platforms to do it. Now we have this access to where we can put our name out there and be seen and heard by millions, and that's what they fear. They don't want that because they can't control that. So they're going to try to control it. It's not about what we're talking about. It's not about the Truth Committee. And it sure as hell is not about Alex Jones. It's all about Trump did what nobody else has done, and that's what they fear. They fear the average day person, the common folk, we the people, taking their positions of power away from them and making real change.
well said. Joe Emmett on here talking about in the streaming YouTube live chat how we need to do a show about the original pirate radio broadcasting out of the sea to England between 1966 and 69.
69.
Rock and roll was actually illegal. That's Radio
Right.
Caroline. They were a threat to the BBC, the state-sponsored media, I guess music and pop culture monopoly. That's what happens when
Mm-hmm.
you've got this, what some would call socialism. I refer to just simply as statism. I tend not to get too sidetracked or bogged down with this left-right nonsense, because that's all a distraction, frankly, as far as I see it. But I don't know if it's George Orwell exactly, but it has been said that when you have a boot stomping down on your throat, it matters not whether it's on the left or the right foot. You still got that boot stomping down, smashing down on your face.
That sounds
So,
like something Churchill would have said.
oh yeah,
But I think you are right. I think it was Orwell. But it just reminds me of something you would have heard Churchill say.
I hope we shared all the information with listeners that they're hoping to get, and maybe bits of insight and so forth, different angles on various issues that maybe they hadn't heard before. Of course, one thing to emphasize too here, of course, Drew, is that the people that do, well, I don't like to, you can't use the word follow once again. You don't like to use the word show. I try to stay away from the word follow. That's
I don't
on
like
the
it either.
border, on the cultish
It is. It is.
sort of thing. Of course, supporters, I think, that's the best way, because they do
There's the proper
support
term,
us.
supporters.
Without them, why even be here? All it would be is us talking to ourselves. Maybe just in the end, without you, of course, it would just be me talking to myself. So, you people out there in the listening audience, you're the reason that we are here. There's no doubt about that. Um, it's it's like any other thing, stand-up comedy, music. Yeah, it's if a podcast streams over YouTube but nobody shows up, did it really stream? The whole thing, if a tree falls in the forest. So that kind of deal. If a podcast streams over YouTube but nobody shows up to listen, did it really stream? Just think about that. It's kind of like a Zen Cohen type deal, I guess. So, all right, are you ready for the premium end of the
Yep.
today's conversation?
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it
So
up. Those and carry this on over to Skype. That way you can get some recording, get some premium stuff up for your Pirate Radio podcast. And
we're trying to get
so
Carolyn
you
Rose
guys,
Goyd up this next Friday night
I'm
too.
looking
Let's not
forward to
forget
that.
people. Well, we're trying to get it in place. I'll do my best. She's kind of we got our pictures put together right now, and we're kind of trying to work things out here as best we can. And she's just running strictly off her cell phone, from what I understand. So it's not the easiest thing to do. She's never, I don't think, done a live stream with us to date. It's mostly been pre-recorded. I think it sounds like she wants to do the live um, deal, because she'll have, of course, the real human interaction. She can,
Hmm.
it's just more effective and powerful way of doing things, obviously. So, as well as, let's not forget the midweek World Pirate Radio news stream on a Tuesday night, same time as what we've done here tonight,
Yeah, 11
8
o'clock.
p.m. out Pacific, 11 out in the Eastern time zone. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it,
Yes,
man.
it's been, like I said, it's definitely an honor to have you on here, and it's been an honor to get to know you and actually be able to take part of Pirate Radio podcast. And I truly thankful for that. I'm thankful for Mr. A and Kaiser's or Kaiser. No, it's Kaiser, isn't it?
Kaiser, sure, you betcha. Hermit Nix, there's a new name that we haven't seen up until this week. So, of course, yeah, Rob the Man. I think even Carla might have
Yep.
popped in. That's there we go, Carla Flower, who I'm guessing might be Joe Eminon's significant other. Christina Taft, Robert Hopkins. A lot of great activity, participation, and support.
But we will definitely catch you for Sons and Daughters of Liberty. I will be back, hopefully back to my normal schedule on Monday. It don't know what it's going to be because I'm still waiting to get with Free Spirit Press News. So it might not be back to the broken systems just yet, because I promised her I would start talking about the medical system over with her, because she's got some input she wants to put in before I do my next show on that. So if it's not broken systems, it'll probably be ramblings of the chaotic mind. I got a lot of things I want to say, and that's the perfect segue for that one. And Tuesday nights at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Pirate Radio News, the Muck Around Show. Never know what we're going to talk about. We know how the news is. It's something new every day and every minute. But we try to pick out, some of the stuff that's trending and some of the stuff that's non-trending. So check us out over on Pirate Radio Podcast on Tuesday nights and Friday nights. And we will see you on the next one. You guys all have a good evening. And thank you for stopping by.